Hey, how's it going, everybody? It's me, Crazyfrankie, and I'd like to welcome you to my Week 13 4 key game picks. Before I talk about my picks for week number 13, thoughts from week number 12. Well, there's one area I got to start with, and that is definitely the Dallas Cowboys again. Now, last week in a huge win for them last week over the Redskins last week, to really the Cowboys put themselves now in the driver's seat to win the NFC East. That's assuming if everything goes according to plan. Now, their next game may halt most of their plans, but if I look at their remaining schedule, that's probably the only bump on the road for their remaining schedule is got to be the New Orleans Saints. And speaking about that, that is going to be one of my key game picks that I will talk about in just a few minutes. I don't know. This may be the only bump on the road for them, but that is assuming if the Cowboys with Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott and their entire team finally stay focused. Now, it took them a long time to finally get in the groove of things. But they also should be fortunate for the fact that the NFC East is a terrible division. Washington is going downhill fast, and that is due to the fact that Alex Smith is out for the season. And it's really tough to say right now how the Eagles are going to fare the rest of the way. They were lucky to get a big win last week over the Giants. But it's that NFC East. I mean, it's still considerably, in my opinion, is still up for grabs. Even though a lot of analysts have said the Cowboys are in the driver's seat to win that division, I'm not going to necessarily say that because the Eagles still have one more game with them in Dallas. Who's to say Philadelphia can go in there and upset them? Dallas may have beaten them in Philly in the first meeting, but who's to say this meeting could be different in the second game? Packers. Obviously, it is as much as I want to count the Packers out now since they lost to the Vikings and the fact that the NFC North technically still up for grabs, but the Bears basically still have control of that NFC North division. It's really tough to say. The reason why I'm saying this, and I know a lot of you are probably saying the Packers are finished. That may be true. But if you look at the remaining schedule, it favors them. It favors them quite a bit because Minnesota does have one tough game coming up, and that's against New England. That's coming up soon. That is another one of my key game picks I will talk about as well. And the fact that the Bears also have a meeting with the Rams coming up next week in week 14, that could be critical in them trying to hold on to that NFC North. So to point out to something here, now I know the Packers offense hasn't gotten the groove of things, but they got an easy game coming up on Sunday against the Cardinals. They should win that one. That should be no excuse if they lose. If they lose, then I'm going to say their season is over because they should have beaten a fairly easy opponent. But you just can't count out Aaron Rodgers. And look, I know a lot of you are probably counting out the Packers already. I can't. Because for some strange reason, they always find a way to sneak in. And I wouldn't be surprised if they do it this year. Their schedule favors them, pretty much. Their only toughest game they have left really is the Bears. And they have already beaten the Bears in week 1, but that was completely different then. Who's to say the Bears will win this one in Soldier Field? So I can't really knock the Packers out of competition just yet because there's one team I think could be on the verge of being out right now, and that is the Carolina Panthers. Big disappointment. They lost to the Seahawks on a last-second field goal. They lost 3 straight. They got the Saints coming up very soon, and that, to me, may put the dagger in their playoff hopes. I mean, they're already on the outside of the 1 through 6 seed in the NFC. They were in the playoff berth, now they're out of it. So now it just brings up a big question right now for that Carolina team. Can they get back in the groove of things? I don't know if they can. As far as everything else in the rest of the league is up to standards. Pittsburgh. I got to quickly talk about Pittsburgh. Bad decision making by Ben Roethlisberger in the fourth quarter. An interception when really they were right at the goal line when they really should have ran the ball. Kind of pulled a Pete Carroll and Seattle Seahawks moment right there. And I really think that was just wow. Big Ben really talking trash. I was listening to sports media this week to his receivers. I mean, that to me is just astonishing. When really that was your fault. You threw the interception in the fourth and late in the fourth quarter to try to tie the game when really they should have ran the ball. Anyways, I could talk about more of a lot of things right now, but I need to get to my picks here. This video is already late as it is, and I need to get to them. All right, let's begin with key game number 1 here of week number 13. It is the New Orleans Saints versus the Dallas Cowboys. The Saints are 7-point favorite in this one, and I absolutely agree with that. Breeze last week went 15 of 22, 171 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception last week against the Falcons on that Thanksgiving game. And speaking of the Thanksgiving game last week, Prescott in his game against the Redskins went 22 of 31, 289 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions. Cowboys may be playing well right now, but in order for the Cowboys to win this game, their defense has got to get to Drew Brees because their offense has just been spectacular and lights out. I'm going to make this pick short and sweet, but it may be big surprising if the Saints somehow lose this game because they're still clinging on to the number 1 seed right now, and that is important for them to make sure that they get home field advantage. Dallas, of course, they're trying to maintain that. They're trying to maintain that that driver's position in the NFC East. But if I look at it this way, New Orleans' offense is 2 times as better than Dallas's. Their defense is playing lights out. And really right now, Dallas is going to have to really come up big on this Thursday night game in order to beat the Saints. But I'm going with the New Orleans Saints here. I just think they just have too much offense here. And I think it's going to be really tough for the Dallas Cowboys to even manage this. So this is a quick pick on this one here. Saints over the Cowboys. Key game number 2. A big one for both of these two teams. The Sunday night game. The Chargers versus the Steelers. Steelers are a 3.5-point favorite in this one, and I do agree with that. Chargers took a big hit last week. Melvin Gordon's not going to be playing in this game. MCL sprain. It really hurts their running game. Phillip Rivers now is going to have to really find a way to get their offense going because Pittsburgh is pissed right now. They're pissed after what happened in that game against Denver, and this would not surprise me if they took it out on the Chargers here. And I'm a Chargers fan personally, though. But when I do this video, I got to be fair here. I think that Pittsburgh is going to bounce back in this one. Now, Rivers last week went 28 of 29, only missed one pass, really. He had a big week last week against the Cardinals. 259 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. He had a great game last week, and it was hard to deny. He wasn't going to be denied a good football game. Roethlisberger, 41 of 56, 462 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 big interceptions. So, of course, that interception at the goal line, which they could have tied the game against Denver, ended up killing them. Pittsburgh's, I think, is going to bounce back in this game here. The Chargers' running game took a hit. They really need to establish a running game because knowing Pittsburgh's defense, they will get to Phillip Rivers here. This game, I think, will be close. I think it'll be a close game. There's no way this game's a blowout. But I just think Pittsburgh is going to bounce back in this game, and I'm picking the Steelers here, even though it pains me to do this because I'm a Chargers fan. I really want to pick the Chargers in this game. But being realistic here, I think the Steelers are going to bounce back in this game, and I see them beating the Chargers here in this game here. Steelers over the Chargers. Key game number 3, the Minnesota Vikings versus the New England Patriots. Patriots are 6-point favorite in this one, and that I also agree with. Now, Cousins in a big win last week against the Packers, 29 of 38, 342 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no interceptions. He played a great game. He's going to have to play even bigger in this game in order to beat the Patriots here in Foxborough. Brady went 20 of 31, 283 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions in another big win last week against the Jets. You really can't dispute the fact that the Minnesota's defense really has to get to Brady here. That is the only way they're going to beat him because he's too quick in releasing the football. He knows how to pick defenses apart here. Minnesota's defense has struggled still to the point. Now, they did a great job on Aaron Rodgers last week, but now you're facing Tom Brady, a guy that knows how to pick defenses apart here, and this is an easy pick for me. I'm going with the New England Patriots here. I just think that the Vikings, they really need to establish a good game plan here. I don't know if they're going to get to Brady in this one here. Brady and the Patriots are just too good at home. And I'm picking the Patriots here. I think they'll beat the Minnesota Vikings, and that is the reason why when I did the first part of that video when I talked about the Packers here, because of their remaining schedule and the fact that Minnesota's game with New England could not have come at a good time for the Packers in order to bounce back and tie with the Vikings here, even though the Vikings own the tiebreaker between them. But when it comes down to it, if the Packers get another roll, the Vikings can only afford to lose one game right now. And this may be the game I can see them losing here. And it's obvious the Patriots are going to beat the Vikings here. And I'm sticking with that. Patriots over the Vikings. And finally, key game number 4. A huge game in the NFC East. The Redskins versus the Eagles. Eagles are a 6.5-point favorite in this one. For this part here, I really think that number should be just maybe 6 points, maybe 5.5. I don't think this should be that big of a number because Philly has struggled a lot all season. You could say a Super Bowl hangover. You can say the fact that, their injuries are catching up to them, and those are all valid points. They're lucky they're drawing the Redskins here in this game because they definitely want to have their say in the NFC East. McCoy last week for the Redskins, 24 of 38, 268 yards, 2 touchdowns, but was intercepted 3 times in that game. And that is not helping the Redskins one bit when their offense struggled big time last week against Dallas. You go in here for Philly here, you don't think the Eagles are going to want blood, and I think they're going to get it. Now, Wentz didn't play. Wentz 20 of 28, 263 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. And really, they had a tough game against the Giants. But this is a game the Eagles, I honestly think, will win this game here. I think the Redskins are too beat up here. Their defense has struggled big time. They struggled big time last week against the Cowboys. They couldn't stop Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott. Who's to say how they have to have some sort of perfect game plan in order to stop the Eagles here? It'll be a close game. This game's not going to be a blowout. It'll be a close game. But I think the Eagles are going to win this game here, and I'm picking the Eagles here. I think, to me, Washington's injuries have caught up with them. Could not have come at a worse time when you led that division the majority of the season, and now all these bad luck things have happened to the Redskins, and it's just only going to make matters worse for them if they don't get their if this team doesn't really establish some control here. But I just think, to me, they don't have enough. They had their chance to lock up this division, and they're not doing it. I like the Eagles in this one, but it'll be a close game here, and I'm sticking with that pick. The Eagles over the Redskins. All right, everybody, that wraps up my picks for week number 13. For all of my week 13 picks, check the description below, and I'll see you guys next week when I talk about my picks for week number 14. We're coming down the home stretch, folks. It is almost week 17, and the playoff push is really on fire right now. Anyways, enough of my lame words here. I'll see you guys next week. Have a great football weekend. Take care.